We're going to have a fun little conversation today with Joe and I. There's a lot of things that we like to do as consultants to help roll out the year, kind of build things for our clients. And listen, we're RevThink, so we like to think differently or get you thinking differently about different things. So to approach this beginning of this year with three big questions instead of three big answers, I like this, Joe, because it kind of just opening us up to like letting some universal ideas come out instead of something specific. But also just what it means to kick off a year and own it, because we're going to have to own this 2025 or we're going to be successful at it.
I agree, and I like the questions framework because the idea that at the beginning of the year you would have all the answers to get you to the end of the year is backwards. It's a stressful way to start the year by assuming we sort of know what's going to happen. And so, as you and I were prepping for this, you had a handful of good questions wherein the good stuff gets revealed.
Yeah, right.
So,
Yeah.
I think we should just do it. Like, what's the first question everybody should be asking?
Yeah, sure. It's actually interesting because I've been rolling this out like truly since Monday. Every meeting I'm having, I've been doing this practice. And I want people to get to goals, right? So goals are important because they help communicate your intentions to others. And that's why I've been telling my clients, it's like, it's not about accomplishing the goals so much at this point in the year as it is taking some of that burden off your shoulders and sharing that to say, my intention for this year, my goal for this year together for us as a team, whatever, is to accomplish something. But the question I want to ask, that's a bigger question, is like, what's the one big goal you can actually commit to right now? So sometimes these goals are like big ideas and concepts, great place to start in goal planning. But every time I've been having a conversation over the last few days, I've been saying, like, let's just choose one that we know we can do. Because those commitments allow us to get to specific items, right? A deadline for something, goals are measurable. So you can get to a deadline. They have a topic you have, when you accomplish it, you can actually check the box. But also specifically, like there are obstacles and actions required in order to accomplish that goal. So there are now steps or intentions that you have to roll out to your team and get them on the same page. So that one big question, what's the one big goal you can commit to right now, is giving yourself permission to start that process, start owning this year right off the bat.
And what I like about what you've described, Tim, is sort of, as you know, I have an interesting relationship with goals. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. But breaking it down to what is a thing you intend to accomplish and what are the related steps to getting to that thing you intend to accomplish, pulling that language all the way down to naming the thing, as opposed to something that feels a little bit more ethereal, like a total number, a total revenue number as a hypothetical, which sort of, as we all know, is not easy to get to.
Yeah. And being specific, right? So just to say, first goal, more revenue. Well, more is not defined enough. But if you were to say, I want to hit $1.5 million, and then you have a RevThink bingo card, you can actually do a breakdown of that $1.5 million into the types of engagements, the value of each of those engagements, and how many of those those you need on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, or annual basis. Those are very practical goals that you can set. And then you can roll out those exact numbers to your sales team or for yourself. If it's a personal sales goal. Oh, I need four $20,000 engagements in order to hit X dollars. I need one, $50,000 engagement per quarter, gives me another $200,000 and so on, right? Two annual $300,000 projects, and I hit my goal. And you can also I realize it's not infinite number of engagements. There are finite engagements. Therefore, there are finite clients. It's easy. You know their names. You give them a call. You start the process rolling.
And if you'll allow me to a moment to plug my own invention, the addendum to the bingo card, which is, okay, if I know I need four projects at $50,000 this quarter, how many times do I need to pitch to get there? And how many human beings do I need to interact with in order to create opportunities to pitch? So we've started at something like $1.5 million in revenue, which is good and fine. But taking the steps and showing up with the right intention to stair step that all the way backwards to every week I need to get on the phone with two human beings who I either have or haven't talked to before is a huge relief starting off the year. It takes that big sort of hairy, scary number and shortens that goalpost down to a thing you can actually do this week in service of the thing you need to do this year, which for me is everything.
I love it. So we have actually, you can imagine, why not? We have an actual worksheet for people to help in the goal setting process. If you've set goals before, you know that you have a version of this or done a version of this yourself. But if you haven't, this is a really simple way to just get started. This sheet that we have has basically 4 different evolutions of the same goal setting process. The first one, I almost realized that like an hour ago that these should go not be G1 meaning goal one, but these should be like W1 meaning wants. Because the first thing you want to begin in the goal building process is just write down what you want. Like, don't worry about the structure, don't worry about the wording. You can, one might be 3 words, one might be a paragraph, but you have to get the idea out of your head. Just give yourself permission, complete brainstorm, whatever comes out, bullet points, whatever acronyms, I don't care what it is. But the very first stuff is just getting out of your head what it
Regular
wants.
water is sparkling.
Yeah. And you don't have to be specific in this first one. Goals have to become specific. We have to convert them to specific items, but the want section allows us to do that. So the next section of this is actually exactly that. It's moving those wants to goals, and goals have specific verbiage. It allows you to be specific, what you're going to accomplish and how you're going to get there. And so the goal making process, or goal writing process, is basically auditing those wants to goals. And we want you to go through the first audit process in writing down the goals so that you realize some of the stuff I put in a want actually isn't achievable, or is not necessarily a goal. It's more of a personal outcome or an idea of a personality that I want to become. It might be a piece of education to improve something, but it's not necessarily something that's measurable in a way that would be a goal for the next 12 months. After that, you take goals. We want you to take the first 5. And the first thing that's really important to identify are what are the obstacles you have to overcome. Because those obstacles, defining them, lets you know what those target items are that you're going to attack to accomplish those goals. Sometimes it's just amount of effort, but sometimes there's education or connectivity or other relationships that have to be brought in. Think about what you're now doing is you're opening up your mind to what the real work is for this year, who you're going to work with, how you're going to work with them, what you're going to roll out to your team. Like, it really starts turning this stuff into what the final step is, which is the action items. And action items now are the beginning of accountability. So once I get to this final stage, I can actually now delegate to you, Joe. Joe, go get us those 4 clients in the San Francisco Bay Area that we had the goal for. And you're like, great. First action item, buy a plane ticket. Second item, like, start looking at LinkedIn for people that I know. Like, those action items become very, very clear. And we're actually kind of start achieving those goals and checking off those items one by one. I'm happy to share this. Anybody want this? Just DM me, hit me up here or whatever. I'm happy to give you a copy of this, as we always do with our worksheets, and let you just work from this or anything. The internet's good with these items, but just kind of working through one by one. This is the worksheet I've been working with our clients so far.
The addition I'd love to make to that as well, because I love that this starts with wants, is to give an example. I met with a client today and asked about goals from 2025. They said 25% net profit as an agency on the year, which is a delightful goal, by the way. It's very specific and obviously measurable. And then I said, great, what was your net profit last year? 25%. Well, okay. A goal is not a goal unless you might not achieve it. And so the idea that we can start with wants and dream a little bit bigger, I think, is really important for us as entrepreneurs to make sure we're stretching, make sure we're pushing ourselves. And I think the unspoken part about that is if you set an ambitious goal and you don't quite achieve it, nothing happens. No one's checking. And so the permission to push yourself and the permission to sort of to think outside the box as required to get from where you are to where you want to go is a really, really important part of doing that at this stage. So bringing that all the way up to what do I want out of my life and my business is a great place to start.
Yeah. And we can play with the idea of like a 25% being a goal is something you might talk to a sales team about, like, hey, you have specific goals. But if you think about it, once you're in the 3rd or 4th year of achieving a 25% net revenue growth,
No, it's fine.
What, Jason, you're on, you probably need to mute.
The water's sparkling, by the way.
Once you take that 25% objective or year over year, what you're really talking about is the value of your company. So when you start, that stretch might be like, hey, I want to increase the value of my business, increase my equity share or something like that. That's what That's what the bigger picture allows you to kind of stack up the little pieces for. So that exercise is really great that way. So yeah, picking a target that stretches you, picking a target that moves beyond that. But right now, like I'd say like the first question has to be like, what's the one big one you're going to commit to and begin that process? Because you have to get in the habit of owning this year as soon as possible. Get those engines started. It's already the 8th of January. We're already 1 week into this thing. There's only 51 weeks left, whatever you want to say. But we got to, like, first quarter's coming sooner or later. What are those goals and how we're going to achieve it? We got to buy into one and start moving the cheese on that stuff, or moving the chains on that stuff. Don't move the cheese.
Not that one.
Yeah.
I think that is related to the second question that you asked me, Tim, which is who are the clients you really want? You want to tell me where your head was at with that one?
Yeah, I think that a lot of what we do is respond to the people that have liked us in the past, right? So I can ask you, who are your clients? And you're going to repeat to me like where your past successes, which, by the way, 100% we coach people to do that. We say, hey, if you want to guarantee revenue, go ask your past clients to give you money. Like, that's what you're going to want to do. But one of the things that's really nice for you to kind of put into place is to know who your ideal audience is. So this is, again, like a big of a stretch to say, well, I know where I currently fish, but is there a different fishing hole? Is there something else I want to do? Is there any kind of movement, or is the economy or industry forcing me to start thinking differently about who that audience is? So I have to start really thinking about what that is. And what it requires is homework. I now have to go ask people, hey, who's popular nowadays? What directors are being repped by who nowadays? Where are the clients moving? Who's shut down? Like, these agencies are acquiring one another. What does that drastic change mean? And it keeps my head in the game for the year, makes me start thinking strategically how to get there, and I can start tracking them. Joe, both you and I over the first quarter are going to do small groups. You and I have different confab groups for the quarter, but we're both focusing on sales. Yours is more on, we'll say, like the philosophical side, the principle side of it. And I am getting into like literally the nuts and bolts. Like, we're going to be writing emails in the 1 hour on Thursday mornings as we do that. And I think both of us have the same intention of like, let's get our heads in the game right now, understanding who that audience is, and start working through that networking, the language that we need to, and those introductions to those clients. So if you're going to pick those key clients, which is question number 2 here, now we actually have a reason to start typing those emails that you and I want people to start doing starting tomorrow morning and next Tuesday morning for our small groups.
And one of the things we're going to get into in my group, spoiler, is LinkedIn exists. You can create a selling situation as a condition of knowing who you want to talk to and being just interesting enough to get a little bit of their attention. There's not that much standing in the way, physically speaking, of going after your dream clients. But that starts with knowing who your dream clients are. And one of the things I think is related to knowing what clients and projects you truly want is like, well, how big are your dreams? Seth, if it's okay, I'd love to put you on the spot because I know you have a dream client list. And you gave me a dream client a couple of weeks ago that I've been thinking about basically nonstop for like 3.5 weeks. Is it okay if I tell everybody what it is?
Yeah, go for it.
I said, who, like, wildest dreams, blue skies, close your eyes and wave a magic wand, whatever. Who do you want to work with? And Seth said the Muppets. Character animation, beautiful use of narrative. I've been inspired by that. So I've been asking myself, kind of like day over day, week over week, like, well, what would it take to work with the Muppets? So we're going to talk offline about the research we've done on LinkedIn. But the answer is clicking through the humans you know, the humans you think you might know, and just looking at who performs what role at what company is going to lead you to an opportunity where you can have a conversation, if nothing else, about working with the Muppets.
I didn't know that. That's a fun goal.
God,
Seth, I owe you an apology because I actually worked with the Muppets. We did the Jim Henson picture logo back in the day. Worked with Kermit 2 different times. But the owners of the Muppets back then were different. This is before the acquisition, so I have no idea who controls it anymore. But we would hang out with the Henson family back in the day, and there was Muppets literally in a closet as we were working there. So that's a really fun goal to put out there. Yeah.
But also, we've just created a degree of connection. It doesn't really matter that they don't own the Muppets anymore. I bet we can do some research and trace Tim's connections to some Muppet contacts now, which is kind of the whole point.
That's exactly right. Once you put the goal out there, I have a good friend that would tell me, listen, he tells people what his goals are so that they can help them, right? So he wanted to at one point have one of those large paintings in one of the skyscrapers in New York City. So he would go around and tell people, this is what I want to accomplish. And before he knew it, someone said, well, I have a friend, so-and-so, the Mercedes building. Maybe that's a good lobby to start with. And all of a sudden he was finally in a conversation. He didn't win that one conversation, but he got closer and closer. If he didn't share his goals, he would have never accomplished that. So you're totally right about that. That's what networking is all about. That's why we want to get people in the right mind and thinking that way. Okay, so question number one is, what's the one big goal you can commit to right now? Right. So start owning that goal and start doing it. Question number two, who are the clients or projects that you truly want? So we want to be able to make that list. I'd say like the pro tip here is find a client that you'll actively pursue in this quarter. So if you come to my small group tomorrow morning, it's going to be the first email you're going to write. Now, it's not going to be, please give me a job email. We're going to work our way through to it. But if it's that long-term dream client and we have to start making our way that way, we're going to do our research and start messaging that stuff out there. We'll make it happen. Third question for the year to think things off. How are you going to measure your success? So all great success has an understanding, something that's achievable, but you're going to have to get a feedback loop. If you know my decision ladder, you know where it starts is like at the very bottom, it starts with a good system, meaning like it pulls data in and the data is accurate and good. A good system also leads to a good report, so that it basically means if you're giving a report, you know how to read it. A balance sheet is a report that comes out of a system. I don't know how to read it. It doesn't matter what it says. Doesn't matter how accurate it is. I don't know what a balance sheet means. It doesn't get me somewhere. So I need a visibility into that information. And when I do, I get an aha moment. It's like, oh, now I get it. So if I turn to the right, the vehicle goes to the right. Oh, I got it. Now I get how this thing starts to work. So that visibility and those insights allow me to finally make decisions I can control the machine I'm driving. So we want people to understand how they're going to measure their success. Many of you might have some systematic processes in place, a spreadsheet here, our time tracking tool there, or maybe just budget and actuals column, but the accuracy of that actuals or the accuracy of the information you might not be getting there, or you don't understand the purpose of having those columns on your spreadsheet or buttons in your software is to get to that final resting place of a decision point. So I want to know, if we're going to get there, how are you going to measure the success? This is really important because as you make clear milestones, I want you to be able to track your progress closer and closer to it. This is why we emphasize a cash board, like a cash flow sheet that you can manage on a week-by-week basis. You can see so much progress. You can see obstacles. You can solve problems. You have absolute crazy visibility looking at a cash flow sheet on a week-by-week basis. And we want people to see that and other tools, but that's a really clear one that we want people to lean into.
I'm in love with the dashboard, honestly. I think even in the businesses we've worked on together, the way that it informs decision making is huge, but the way that on a week over week basis, it informs the behaviors you need to take that week is the reason I'm so passionate about it. The reason I have, let's say, ambivalent relationships to goals is because they're often not tied to any behavior that you can take that day. So in which case, it's cool that you said that out loud, but what are you going to do? I love the idea that on a day-to-day basis, there is behavior that you know you need to do in order to make progress toward the thing the data is telling you. And those things create a virtuous circle without which you are thinking, goal setting, and behaving a little bit in the dark, which is, of course, horrifying to me.
Yeah, and the simple reports along those lines are financial reports because they're numbers. In a way, you can't spell a number wrong, right? The way the software works and your banking system works, you can download these transactions, and with some accurate accounting. And again, I highly recommend getting a bookkeeper. Please get a bookkeeper. Make that your number one goal if you don't have that as a goal. But get somebody that keeps you on routine and gives you that data feed, accurate data feed, so you can do that stuff. So financially, it's a really simple example. But Joe, in the case of the stuff that we're going to be talking about, even in our small groups, is like also like a CRM, something that tracks your progress towards the connections that you're making so that you have some accountability coming back. One of my favorite CRMs is Pipedrive. I don't think it's your favorite, Joe. Is that right?
I've come around.
Okay,
It
good.
does what it's supposed to do.
My favorite part of Pipedrive is like whenever you start the process of a client, you can assign a date to a follow-up, and then you can let it go because the system's going to remind you when the to-do item becomes the deadline comes for the item to pop up. So like if you're using the software on a regular basis, that software goes, hey, do these 3 emails today. And you write those 3 emails and then you say, follow up again in 2 weeks or follow up again in 2 months. And then you let it go again. So that idea of like just having a simple place to hang your hat every time you need to, letting go of it, and then knowing where that hat is when you have there, a CRM is a great place to develop relationship management. So production tools, accounts that you have, budget to actuals, these are all really great ways. Sales, finance, and production are great places to put some data and give you some good feedback so you can make decisions.
Along those lines, CRMs perpetuate a behavior that I'm a big fan of. It's an accountability behavior, but it's asking yourself, what are you going to do next in this particular situation, whether it's a selling situation or a client situation? And Travis, that CRM is Pipedrive. And I will, believe it or not, give it my endorsement. I've spent about a year in it now and I really like it. But I have a lot of conversations. We talk about lead generation, we talk about the status of sort of prospects. And I hear a lot, well, I'm waiting on the client for that. I'm waiting on this person for that. That is, of course, understandable. The question then that the CRM prompts you to ask yourself is, okay, well, what's the next behavior I can take? And that is if I haven't heard anything in 2 weeks, follow up. You put that in there, and then to your point, Tim, it goes out of your brain forever. But if you're constantly orienting yourself towards what is the next behavior I can take, those tools and the data that they provide for you allow you to keep momentum going where it might otherwise stall out.
And think about the question that we put before us, right? The question we said is, how will you measure success? We asked that question specifically because that is the long-term goal, right? We don't want you to just make some kind of routine so you feel like, how do you measure accountability isn't what we said, or how do you hold someone accountable? That's not what we're saying. And a lot of people can misread reporting and analytics as, hey, this is big brother overwatching everything you're doing to making sure you're showing up and doing your job. Showing up and doing your job should be a byproduct of wanting to be successful. So the desire to be successful, to be driven, to achieve something, to be thinking bigger. And that's how these 3 goals stack up, right? So the measurement of success is the result of working with specific people, these dream clients, reaching out and doing something more. And then why? Because we have this one big goal we're trying to accomplish. So our one big goal gives us a reason to reach out to the right people, and reaching out to those right people give us a measure, something we can look at as success. And we want to measure that. We want to measure our progress towards it. And then we want to celebrate the day we achieve it. We want to check that big things off. And at the Oscars, we used to have this big gong in the middle of the room. And whenever they'd book a piece of talent, the talent manager would come out and just bang that gong as loud as she could, right? And so I like to say, like, go ring that bell, go bang that gong, go do something that says, I actually got to that end zone. I measured it and I hit it. Boom, let's celebrate for a moment. Because that's going to give you the desire to do it again and again. That's how you grow your business. That's how you maintain your business. That's how you maintain your success.
I can't advocate enough for celebrating your wins. You wouldn't believe how often I'm told about a win and then asked what's next. Well, what's next? You have a glass of champagne. Like, wait for a second. So I think that energy also, in addition to the rigor of measurement and committing to goals, the willingness to pause, the willingness to enjoy and experience some delight from the wins that your business gets you is as important as anything.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're open to any questions, or anyone who has another question they would think would be another big year question. Put ourselves out there. Before we do, we did mention a couple of things. So just for clarity, we have this small groups called confab groups. We start them every quarter and we finish them on the quarter so that we can kind of change the topic or change around, the group, whoever's in each group and so on. So for the next 10 weeks, we're going to work together. We're going to specifically, Joe's going to lead one group with Brent. The two of you guys are going to launch a group. And at 3:00 today, we're going to give you some more visibility of what those groups are. I think 9:00 tomorrow morning also. But Joe, just real quickly, your group, when is it meeting and what is the topic?
It is meeting Tuesdays at, I believe, 10 or 11 a.m. Central. Sorry, I'm immediately going to misquote it,
It's
but enough
9
time
9
for
a.m.
everyone.
Pacific. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Enough time for everyone Pacific and Eastern to join. And the topic is selling with soul. The idea behind this topic is experts are great at being experts and often feel like they're not themselves in selling situations. When we round that corner and recognize a selling situation for what it is and frankly what it isn't, and when we behave like the experts we are, selling becomes a thing we can enjoy, even fall in love with, and doesn't have to feel separate from the rest of the business that you run. And so we're going to open up some conversations about what's working and what's not in selling situations among entrepreneurs.
That's great. And my group meets on Thursday mornings at 9 o'clock. We do it by Zoom, and I'm going over this book, quite frankly, exactly how to sell. We're going to get down to the exact wording, phrasing. This man, Phil M. Jones, he has another great book called Exactly What to Say. And the concept here is like just get past the burden and begin doing it. And then my thought is that if we do it together, right? If you show up every Thursday with a to-do list of items and you sit there for the hour and you get through your sales routine and you do that for 10 weeks, you're going to begin the habit that for the rest of the year, you're going to follow that habit and feel very comfortable with it. But also just some group accountability and some specific tips on how to get there are going to kind of help us launch into it. So we're trying to drop those barriers down, those hesitations you might have to be doing this outreach. We're going to focus on sales because the industry is changing, the people are changing, and everyone's moving. So we have to know the process of sales so we can always be nimble as we need to grow our business and reach out and do new things. But also, many of us know that we depend heavily on sales to keep our business going. Even though we're creative businesses, a sales is always hanging over our head. So we want to show you how simple it can be so you can get rid of that burden as soon as possible and get back to the thing that you really want to do, be creative. All right, so those things are happening. You can come to the session today at 3 o'clock. If you're in RevCommunity, you can find these in the events area. Today at 3 o'clock, tomorrow at 9 o'clock, and then they start next Tuesday and Thursday as groups. As always, you can email me, tim@revthink.com, if you have any questions, or joe@revthink.com if you want to ask Joe any questions. But now that microphone's open, cameras on, whatever, anybody else have any questions or thoughts about our conversation today? The 3 big questions, or how you're going to help achieve goals in 2025? Who's looking forward to 2025? Who's done with 2024? Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like we deserve it, don't we? Like there's got to be something that says we've piled through the crazy stuff. Let's actually do something that's positive. It does feel like since the beginning of Q4 that new things have picked up. So there seems to be some momentum. And then the US, the election seems to have created a little bit of positive energy about business. So for better or worse politically, there's at least some energy around business and business stuff that seems to have the economy thinking the right way. And anyone here from Canada that wants to tell us why your prime minister left or whatever's happening there? Maybe that's a positive thing too. Ron just said nope.
Fair enough.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll tell you all, I'm excited about 2025. For the first time ever in my career, I didn't necessarily set a revenue goal for my business, although obviously I backed into one. Like, let's be honest, I can say I'm ambivalent about them if I want, but I know how much revenue I want to do. But I started with behavioral goals, started with ways I want to live my days, weeks, months, and quarters, and arrived at some pretty clear, measurable milestones for if I'm running my business the way I want to. One of which I shared in the small groups in the past, but is to travel more and see more human beings in person. I spent 2024 literally right here and was really exhausting. And so just arriving at a place where I knew what it was going to take to make me feel more excited about my business than I have been in the past year allowed me to make some decisions. And what wouldn't you know it? I'll be in California in 2 weeks
2 weeks.
and meeting a whole bunch of you all, which is very exciting for me. I've got sort of a number of those things coming up, but it was nice for me to remind myself that the way you want to behave and the way you want to view your business, yourself and your role in your business is as important as the amount of money you want to make.
Yeah, that's a great reminder. There's a why we go to business, right? Like there's things that we know we can do, there's desires that we have, there's influence that we like that comes along the way, but really is achieving something of that personally satisfies us. And it person connection, personal priorities, that kind of stuff are really kind of like feed the day to day in so many great ways. Go ahead, Seth.
Yeah, I'm really into goal setting, almost to an obsessive point, as I'm sure Joe can attest. And
I
I'd
can't.
argue for myself, when it comes to goal setting, a really important step is understanding your values and your tenets. Because I believe if you're not living in accordance with whatever you value or however you want to represent yourself in your life, your goals are not going to support what's important to you. And so I keep a tab on my spreadsheet of my values and tenets, which I try to keep in parity with my goals. And I find a lot of times if you're experiencing anxiety, you're experiencing depression around being busy, a lot of times it's because you're busy with your goals, but you're not actually relating them to the things that you have value assigned to.
Very smart. It really is like there's a if they're not aligned to your values, it's almost insatiable, right? If you just said more money and more money, but you don't have a reason or purpose or desire, money should be something that complements it instead of be the principle that we're
Or if
going
it's
for.
at the expense of family or other things that are valuable to you.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, our industry doesn't do a good job of supporting those values all the time, and we have to know what they are to stand up for ourselves, know what the line is, and get there. It's interesting how many times that when we finally stand up for ourselves, how what's the right way of saying this? That how little we're rejected when we stand up for ourselves, but we tell ourselves inside our mind we won't be accepted. This won't be accepted, so we hide that and put work first or our jobs first, and it can be really damaging. Yeah.
Or we put clients' needs, desires, and requests first, with the fear that something will go wrong if we assert what we stand for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can't can't advocate enough for asserting what you stand for. Again, odds are only a good thing is going to happen.
Right. You get almost have an addiction to being important. Yeah. All right. Any other parting thoughts? Last thoughts?
Just wondering, the questions that you asked before that you kind of ran through, if anybody here on the call has actually gone through that process, it sounded like some had. And yeah, I'm just curious to hear what other people come up with when they're thinking about who is your dream client. Just was curious if anyone had any examples of who they, yeah, how they frame that.
Travis, do you have one? Do you want to start us off, or you don't have one, so you're curious what other people's are?
Probably more the latter. I'm sure if I think for even half a second, I could come up with something. But I was just, I mean, I was on a call with a non-for-profit client yesterday, and I was remarking to her that I really enjoy working with non-for-profits because the subject matter, the motivation, the message behind whatever it is you're creating tends to have more value than selling a can of Coke or something. So I mean, that's an interesting. I don't know if it's a dream client because there's challenges that come with working for non-for-profits as well, but I do really love the kind of outcomes we tend to get creatively when we work with non-for-profits. But yeah, I was just interested to see if anybody's thought that through, and is it like, oh well, I don't know, is it I just want to work with the best blue chip brands, or is there a specific brand, or how have you framed that?
I'll go. So as you all know, my clients are creative businesses, and the reason often independent creative businesses exist is because they have strong creative visions and points of view that they're not able to articulate in larger businesses. On the agency side, those are holding company agencies. There are more independent agencies than ever because the holding companies are swallowing up everybody and laying everybody off. What I would love to do as a dream client is work with a holding company agency, not just because they're the biggest, although of course they are. It's because the means that they rely on to sell are sort of size, scale, frankly, sheer number of human bodies on your piece of business and economies of scale across the network. What if all of those things were also appended to an industry shaping point of view on what creativity is and what it means for brands, which is what I do for my clients? I'd love to pair a large number of resources with a really, really profound point of view. And so I don't know if that's going to happen, but it's an interesting place for me to start thinking about my prospecting and the human beings I want to meet this year.
So you just want to take on the world. I'm just kidding.
I didn't say no to
that. Why not? Of course, get your hands dirty. I'm with you on that one. That's great. How about you, Jordan? Does all the fame that you already have skew who your ideal clients are, or do you still desire something more?
My goodness, I don't know who you think you're talking to. I am but a humble man, happy to be alive. So yeah, I was thinking about that when I was listening to Travis and to Joe's answer. A good example, last year I got this trailer that I'm in, and I wanted to drive around to family farms. I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to make a documentary that's funded on family farms? So I figured my ideal customer is not family farms because I don't know them, but I know an ECD at Whole Foods, and I know a creative director at an agency that represents a farm, like a meat shipping client. And I did reach out to farms and I flatlined. But of the 4 agency people that I knew well saying, this is a crazy idea, I want to do this documentary, one hit. He ended up selling on my behalf, really, the project. So now, like as of today and this past week, after coming out of the abyss that was before Christmas to Tuesday, I didn't know what day it was. It was crazy. I don't know about you all, but I was just like, I have no idea where or what's going on. So now I'm taking the first finished cut of this documentary and secretly leaking it out. It hasn't even posted yet, but I'm sending trusted agency people that I know they don't do this. This is like an innovative product because they don't sell 7 to 15-minute documentary brand films. But I feel like if I make my list and I'm saying, hey, would you take a peek at this? Because I think it's going to resonate with you. And maybe you'll know someone that may want like a film about the founder or about someone inside the brand. Like, what is the human story that this is? Is this making sense, by the way?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a complete departure from waiting for a board to get a 30-second commercial to write a treatment and do a phone call and all that. I still am pursuing that, but some of that's out of my control. So for 2025, it's replicate, manifest, and do the work. And I need your pipeline. I need some sort of system. Because right now it's just crapshoot. Like, who do I know? Oh, he'll love it. Oh, she will love this.
Yeah.
And sending that email, hoping that in the ether, they're going to go, you know what? I ran across a client who would love this.
I love it. I love that you're basically owning the process and the client. You're not waiting for someone to ask you. You're asking yourself.
I don't have time.
Yeah.
Exactly. And profit margin on the documentary with like tourniquet on spending and decent price was a higher return per production dollar than anything. And I made it with my son, and we went to a farm in Arkansas and Missouri. Like it was a trifecta win.
That's amazing. Yeah, the hedgehog principle, you've had the center of all 3 circles, right? That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks for sharing.
But as you all said, like keeping the family values, I think was part of the allure. You know, that my company is a family-owned business, and I'm going to make it about families, and that's part of it. Like to me, that was part of the magic, whether it makes it on screen or not.
Yeah, I love it. Giving yourself permission to do that too. That's a a great way to kind of kick things off.
But
Good
the
for
next
you.
one could be about podiatrists. I don't know. Just open to whatever comes along.
I might watch the podiatrist one. If you're making it, I'm having to watch that.
So if any of you know like a particularly charismatic podiatrist, I'm open.
Right where to send them.
Yeah.
I do appreciate the idea that it's
And then I
grounded.
think Courtney's probably like related to one something like, you know, this, like, you're going to get somebody out of the blue telling you, oh, my brother is one.
It would be me if that was anybody. I'd be like, I know. Anyway, I'll be in touch.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Anybody else want to share any other thoughts, encouragements as we kind of kick off this year? Really is great doing this with all you all. Well, you're all quiet then. I'm going to leave it. I'll leave that as Tim, call me next week. I'm just wrapping my head around 2025 so we get things started. Okay, so here's the promise Joe and I are going to make to you, and all of us at RevThink are going to make to you. Like, we're here for you. We're here to open the doors for you and to take on the challenges. We love your feedback. So do what you can inside of community for us to post things out there, get other people to contribute, get some comments on that stuff so we can understand what's going on and what you're facing. We have a thought process of what we think is important for the year, but that information you give us, the conversations you have are a big deal and part of that stuff. So thanks for being part of RevCommunity. Thanks for being part of this conversation and encouraging one another. It really, truly is you that makes the difference in each other's business and life, because that what you are all celebrating and sharing equal roles and responsibilities in business. So it's nice to have someone else that you know their name that is going through this with you. And as always, we exist to help you thrive in that business and your life and your career. So whatever we can do to help, we're here for you. I will see some of you, if not all of you, at 3:00 today for this small group conversation we're going to have. Otherwise, I'll see the rest of you tomorrow morning for the conversation, the same conversation. But until then, you guys have a wonderful week, and we'll see you soon. Thank you all for talking. We'll see you soon.
Beautiful. Great to see you all. Have a good week.
Thanks, Joe. Bye.